Well, the customer's complaint on our Maxima was a little roaring when driving. That was an understatement. Didn't even make it on a test drive. Just pulling in from the parking lot, it felt like the wheel's gonna fall off. Man, this one's a no-brainer. But we're still gonna have to diagnose it and fix this Maxima today on Tech Garage. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we got our Maxima in the shop, got the wheels off, took it on a test drive, have this rumbling and growling noise, pretty bad. As a matter of fact, the steering's even getting a little bit loose. Brian, this thing's getting dangerous. I'm suspecting a wheel bearing.
Yeah, I think your suspicion is absolutely on par. And I'll tell you what, you talked about grinding. Let me tell you about grinding. Here's a classic 12 and 6 o'clock test. I got all the lug nuts off except for 2. They're torqued to spec. But look at this and listen. Holy cow, that's no wonder you were getting grinding. That wheel's doing this going down the road. So no further diagnostic is needed here. I'm gonna go ahead and get this disassembled so we can get en route to get a new wheel bearing hub assembly in here.
Well, you get started, get those lug nuts off. I'll tell you what, that's exactly what I was feeling. I was feeling that as I was driving, and I was hearing it by turning to the right or to the left. Now I got a couple of demos set up right here. Now we've done a bunch of wheel bearings here at Tech Garage, but we haven't done this style because there's different types. The first one I want to look at is a tapered wheel bearing, and that's located right here. Some bigger cars, heavier trucks, some of your old school models had this tapered wheel bearing, and if I pull this out, you actually can see the wheel bearings, and this is called a hubbed rotor, because what I have here is, if I knock the bearing out, you can see located right here is the actual bearing itself, or the race, and then the bearings right here, that sits in there. It's called a tapered wheel bearing. There's one on both sides of this one. This is a little bit different design than what we're dealing with. Now on Tech Garage, we also did a hub bearing, or a sealed bearing, one whole unit itself right here. Now this was really easy because if you look on the back, there's just some bolt holes. We just took the bolts out, replaced it, bolted in there. It's one whole unit. It's called an integral unit. And what I was getting, I actually have a bad one here that you can hear. So if I pick up this one and I'm quiet and you listen up, you hear that grinding? Now remember, there's not even 2,000 pounds sitting on that. That's what we're hearing on our Maxima. How should it sound? Well, you don't hear it. You're not supposed to hear it. It's nice and smooth, everything's spinning along. Now on our Maxima, what we have is we have the whole spindle with a pressed in bearing. This is called a Generation 1 or a cartridge style bearing. Now this one, things get a little more difficult. Why they get a little more difficult? Because this one's actually located inside of here through this whole spindle assembly, and it has to be pressed in and out of here. So this is the wheel hub itself, which is located right here, and then the bearing sitting in the spindle, which is right here, and if I go to put it on, it's not going to go on. Why? Well, we're going to need a press to do that. This bearing's actually pressed in and pressed out. And it's a pretty complex job. The whole wheel assembly hub has to come off, then the bearing, then we have to put everything back together. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But what we need to do first is get this whole assembly off the Maxima. Let's check in with Brian, see how you doing here, Brian.
All right, we got the caliper hung up here safely with our best friend, the bungee cord.
All right.
I've got a lot, the lower strut mounting bolts are ready to come out. Let me give them a little encouragement here. Those are ready to come out. I've got the ABS, the wheel speed sensor, backed out. That's just one 10mm bolt.
Now while you're up under there in the suspension system, what you need to do is just do a good visual inspection. When you're doing a good visual inspection, man, go ahead, look at your strut assembly, look at your ball joint. I mean, you got the wheel off, you're ready to go. Make sure you mark it for your alignment, so when you put everything back together, you can at least get it to the alignment shop. It's not gonna be accurate, it's not gonna be perfect, but at least your wheel's not gonna be cambered in or cambered out, or towed in or tow out, actually wiping it out on the way. Well, Brian's pulling that out. Brian, I'm gonna go ahead and sneak this axle nut off for you.
All right.
All right. Take the axle nut off, get that lower ball joint separated. Once we get that lower ball joint separated, then we can go ahead and pull these bolts out, take the tension off of it. May have to pop them through there.
Yep, let me
Good
just
call.
back them out right here.
Just back them out.
No need to fight it.
No, we're going to take the whole spindle assembly off where we can press the bearing. There it
Got
comes.
that one?
Yep. Keep going, there it goes. Now, how about the bottom one here? There we go.
There we go, got
Perfect.
it. Yep.
Now we'll just take the ball joint off. We'll go ahead and separate that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that whole spindle. We got two options. We can go ahead and press it out here on the car with a special set, but I'm going to take it over to our Woodward Fab Press. Chief Tech Chase is over there. He's going to give me a hand. We'll do that right when we return with more Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is being brought to you by Borla, the world's most winning exhaust. EvapoRust, super safe rust remover. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, brought to you by RockAuto.com. Now we got our spindle off and we're ready to push the bearing in. But you know, it's always a good idea to have a second set of hands when you're doing this. It's almost an art form. And even better yet, we have Chief Tech Chase. He's a master tech, so this is going to be even easier. But this is not a real easy job.
It's sure not, John. There's a lot of parts in here that can come apart, so safety is a big player. Couple more hands, couple more set of eyes makes a big difference.
It really does. And you know, we got a couple of options. Brian made such short work of taking that spindle off. We're going to go ahead and do it on our Woodward Fab Press. Now they sent over a brand new press. We're going to give it a test run and it should work really easily. I love that product, number one. Now you can also go down and you can get a set like this one right here. Now this just does it on the car, a little more difficult. There's a whole adapter set. You just got to go through the adapters. But whenever you're pushing a bearing, man, we have a whole array of adapters and things. We want everything level. We want everything perfect. So step number one, well, what we had to do, first thing we had to do is actually pull the actual hub bearing out of there, the whole hub itself where the tire bolts to it. And that's just a matter of setting up the press. We set up the press, we got the tunnel on there, we got it up high enough so it would drop down. Then without taking any clips off, we just pushed down on the top of it from the back side. It fell out right through the bottom, voila, the hub was off. Now what do we do?
Well, then we got to press the bearing out. But these bearings, you know, they have clips in there, and some do, some may have, may not have. So you have to look at each side and see what you need to push it out. You may have different sides tips there on the end of the press to push it out, different types. So just be careful. It's a lot of pressure getting put on those bearings.
Yeah, and that was as easy as putting a screwdriver in there and just popping it out of there. Once we got that off, we were ready to actually push the bearing out itself. Now, to do that, we wanted to make it perfectly level. So we got a little tube, we put it on there. Our adapter fit right on the outside of the bearing, but not enough where it's going to actually rub the housing. A couple of presses, we got the press straight, we got it going, we pressed it down, bearing popped right out the bottom, bam, there it was in our hand.
Yep. Well, you know, John, you may have to fabricate different kinds of plates, different kinds of sizes, just to make it all work. But the key there is it's got to be flush, so to make a nice, smooth transaction to get that bearing out of there.
And that's what we did. We put the clip back in, put it on the other side, and the way we took it out, we just reversed the procedure. We went ahead and pressed it in, and we were watching it. Once it started to get tight in the gauge, we knew we were seated there, and we put the other clip in. Chase, it's a matter now just putting that hub in.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you grab the hub, and I'll grab the adapters, and we'll try to get it level. Now what I did, I actually took a bolt and I put it in here where the actual steering stop was. Why'd I do that? Once again, to get this thing perfectly level. Went down, welded up a little piece here that I can put on there. So now I want to get down here and I want to look. I want to make sure this thing's looking pretty level because we have our clips in and we're going to push that hub back in there, all the way back in there. And once we do that, this is one of the most critical steps here, okay? And why is that? Is because now we have a chance to separate and push that bearing and do some damage. So once you got it straight, you hold it. You ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it down. Now this is nice. We got our handle right over here. We got our 20-ton Woodward Fab Press. Got a gauge right up here I can watch. Starting to go down. There it goes, man, just like butter. All right, so it's going down, it's seated. Great. All we need to do now is just finish pressing this thing, get it over to Brian, get it back on the car. Man, this thing's going to be like new.
Well, while those boys are working the magic over there, I took a few extra minutes to look around and do a really good visual inspection in here while I can see everything. Keep in mind, the condition of that bearing was rough. So I'm looking for any type of obvious damage here on the control arm. No chips or fractures or anything that I can see. I think we're okay, but take a few minutes and do that. One bonus piece of information, I found the serpentine belt's in pretty rough shape. We're going to need to replace that. But John, that thing looks awesome.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't look awesome. Actually, you hear no noise, which is a good thing.
Tremendous.
It's in there. You got a little bit of tension, which is great. Everything's ready to go. We put the turn stop back in.
Perfect.
It's a matter of just reversing the procedure. So
Yep.
if you hold that CV axle, I'll try to get it splined in.
Perfect.
Look at that.
Perfect. Come over
Set
here.
it down on that ball joint.
Sit it down right there.
There you go.
Nicely done.
Look at that.
Let's get a nut on there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, so all we have to do now is just, as you said, reverse the process. You know, we're going to get the lower strut mounting bolts back in, we're going to get the caliper mounting bracket back on, we're going to torque everything, we're going to set the car down, then we're going to torque everything again, and then we need to get it to a professional alignment shop and really seal this job up right.
Yeah, and even though we marked it, you know, our spindle right here going up to our strut assembly, I'll get that line back up for you up here a little bit.
Perfect.
While you're
Yep.
getting that nut in. There we
Good,
go.
thank
Look
you.
at that.
Yep.
All right, we'll get those nuts in. Even though we marked it, and we're going to try to get it to about 0 camber the best we can.
Yep.
At least eyeballing it, you still, like you said, you're going to have to get an alignment. And don't forget, torque specifications are key. I mean, you have to get the torque specifications. This is what's holding your wheel on, man. I mean,
Yeah,
this
it's
whole
a
assembly.
big deal. It
Yeah,
really is.
This made a big difference. I'll tell you what, Brian, you had mentioned serpentine belt.
Yeah.
Well, today, when we go to Project M&M, we're going to look at the accessory belt drive system, and we're going to change the serpentine belt. So stick around. There's plenty more. Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, Project M&M, the Mercury makeover, is back in the shop, and it's coming along well. And I got Tom with me from Rock Auto. Now, Tom, I got to give you props. You're hanging tough, man. We've done a lot to this car. It's looking good. Bring us up to speed.
Well, we've been chipping away at the basic maintenance. We've got the oil change, we've got the wiper blades replaced, and now we're going system by system to make everything where it is up to date and where it should be.
Yeah, we got our coils on there. I mean, it's running great. We got new brakes. We got stopping power. It only makes sense to turn our attention to the belt. Now, what do you think we should do with this belt?
We can test it, but it's 10 years old. I think it's the original belt. It needs to be replaced.
And we can test it a couple ways right at the house. You can go ahead and get one of these fancy gauges. This actually tell you if it's good or bad. But Tom, you got an easier way to do it.
Yeah, I'll just spray this water bottle on a long section of belt while
Right.
the engine's running.
And then what happens when you do that, if it starts squealing, it acts as a lubricant. You know you have a tension issue. If the squeal goes away, it's a tracking issue, so you want to check that as well. So what we need to do is we'll go ahead and take this belt off and we'll replace it. Tom, you can give me a hand. This is cool too. You know, it's not all about parts. You guys have tools as well.
Absolutely, and tension, you think of things wearing out, they get more floppy, but actually on my family's van, I actually had a tensioner seize up. So it was over tight, and you turn on the air conditioner, you get that squealing sound. So that.
All right, pop this off, come all the way around. Now another thing you want to do too is before you pull your belt off, you want to make sure you either take a picture of it or you get your routing diagram. Now we got our routing diagram right off the service manual so we can see it. One other thing, we also took our tank off, our radiator tank, just so you can get a better look down here at the system. Now it's truly a system, Tom. We're talking about a system because we're going to replace the actual idler pulley and we're going to replace the tensioner as well because it's an accessory belt drive system. It all works together. You guys carry all these parts as well?
We do, and we sell them as a kit, so you don't have to guess what you need. You can get the whole shebang in one fell swoop.
Now, belt technology has changed also now. It used to be neoprene belts, and if you squeeze that right there, you can actually see the cracks in that belt, Tom. That's what we would look at. We know this one's shot. That doesn't happen anymore. You don't see any cracks. These things can go for 100, 150, 200,000 miles, and there's no crack because they're EPDM material. Different way to test those.
Gates sent us these nice samples to show how the belts age. This is a new belt, a belt that's aged for a while, and this is a belt that's worn out and should definitely be replaced. This little plastic tool here, it's kind of counterintuitive. You think of a belt wearing down, the ridges protruding less. Well, it's actually the opposite. The valleys between the ridges get deeper, and that can be shown with this little plastic tool. Here I can feel the orange plastic poking above the ridges. Here I feel it's sinking deeper. I can still slightly feel it above the ridges of the belt. And on this belt, old worn out belt, the plastic is deep down in the groove, and I can feel the ridges of the belt poking up above it, so I definitely know the belt needs to be replaced. The EPDM material, you can actually recognize it because, especially when it's new, it almost feels like felt. It's fuzzy, and a great way to tell if your belts need to be replaced.
Now, Tom, I'm down here on the tensioner. I already got the idler pulley put on. So I'll go ahead and I'll put this tensioner on right here. We'll snug it up, get some torque specifications, go back and recheck everything, make sure everything's in order. But like we said, I mean, this thing is a system. I don't I really just don't want to go and replace this thing. I don't want to just put the belt on there. You know, people put on power steering pumps all the time, and they put that power steering pump on and it's not quite lined up, and you can chew up a belt in no time.
Right, yeah, on my van, if I'd put a new belt on that seized up tensioner, it would have wrecked the belt, burned it up right away.
And how did you find out it was actually seized up?
I tried to put the tool on it and move it, and I couldn't move it at all. So I had to loosen the alternator to get the belt off, to even take the belt off.
Yeah, these things are so good nowadays. I mean, this thing actually will hold the engine, the harmonic balancer. We thought an engine was seized up once because the system's so tight and it wouldn't even spin over, and it was simply a component was froze up. So that's what I want to do as a whole system. Hey, we got a new belt there. We got that from rockauto.com as well. And that's cool. And one of the things we can always do with the belts before you go putting it on, Tom, let's go ahead and just hold it up here and make sure. Yep, we'll make sure, yeah, we get in there routing it because the routing can be something. So we'll just make sure, you know, it's close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but, and then I want to check the ribbing as well. I want to make sure that the ribs are in good shape and it looks like the same pulleys, the same grooves. Sometimes they come with square ribs, sometimes they come with round ribs. So you got to make sure with that. You know, those models changes. We didn't have a problem. We just ordered it off, bam, that was the right part. So we had no issues there. Now it's just a matter of following the belt routing. I'm going to need your help there. We'll have to go around the harmonic balancer, and if you get on the pulley over there and help me out, we'll go that side, and then it's coming around to the pulley all the way through, down under the air conditioner, and back up to you on the alternator. Let's see here, we got that going.
Over the top.
Yep, over the top of the water pump. So we'll have to get a little more. I'll give you the slack from the water pump. Sure glad you're here, giving me an extra hand.
I think I need an extra hand. Here we go.
And then you have to be careful with these because we had an option here. We had an option of a smooth pulley or an actual groove pulley. You know, the car came with both options, so you may have to go into there and look and see what's going on. Okay, we got that right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my socket wrench. I'll go ahead and use this, and I'll just go ahead and put it in here so you could use either one as long as we're locked in the right direction. Gives you a little 3/8 drive right here, and I could put it in there, and I'll tip it up to you. And when I tip it up to you, watch your hand there and see if you can get it right over the alternator. Boy, we're going a lot further. That's how much tension we have on that joker. There it is. Look at that. All right.
Nice.
Perfect. Now all you want to do, you want to go in there, you want to start the car, you want to make sure it's tracking right, you don't have any issues, and then we're good to go. We solved our belt issue. But like you were talking about, that system is so important, not only on actual accessory drive belts, what about timing systems?
Yeah, it's a similar arrangement, but it's even more buried in the engine, so you don't have to do all that labor and risk damaging your engine. If some engines, it's interference engine. If the belt breaks, the valves hit the pistons, and you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and labor intensive. I mean, we get into the timing system, and that's pretty cool. If you look at this here, I mean, it comes as a whole system, a water pump, a belt, a timing, a bearing, everything's inside of there. That's huge. I mean, it takes me 4 or 5 hours to get to the front of the engine. One drip from this water pump onto that timing belt, that thing jumps a tooth, like you said, catastrophic engine damage. Accessory belt drives, same way. We're driving a water pump, we're driving an alternator. We could have charging problems, and worse, we now drive the water pump, we don't have any coolant, catastrophic engine damage again.
Yep. Yeah, I can show you some examples of the kits we have in the rockauto.com catalog.
Perfect, let's walk over and check it out.
Great.
Well, you saw how important the accessory belt drive system is and the kit we installed in there. What about timing belts? Do you have kits for that as well?
We do, and the timing belt can be even more important than the serpentine belt because it's so buried in the engine. You don't have to do that labor again, and if it breaks, you can have a catastrophic engine failure. So I pull up 97 Mazda Protege. Here's everything in the kit. Got the water pump, the gaskets, the belt, of course, the pulleys, the tensioners. There's no surprises once you're halfway into the job.
Yeah, and the labor cost, I mean, that's huge. So go ahead and avoid catastrophic engine damage, buy the kit. But stick around, there's plenty more Tech Garage when we return.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is being brought to you by Z-Max, the one product for your engine, transmission, and fuel system. AP Laser, leading the way. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, our video question has to do with stethoscopes we're going to use today, and rest assured, we're not doctors. Let's check it out.
I got this four-wheel drive truck here, and I just take it off-road. I abuse it and just do whatever I want to with it. Well, I get on the road, and it's got this loud humming noise to it. I turn to the left or turn to the right, and it gets louder. What do you guys think?
Dustin, it sounds like you have a ton of fun with that truck, and that's awesome. Well, you got a couple choices. Either turn up the country music even louder and ignore the problem, or actually fix it. So there's a couple easy checks anybody can do to see if you've got a wheel bearing or hub assembly problem.
Yeah, and the first thing you do is real simple. Just get it up in the air. You showed a little bit on the Maxima today, where you just take the wheel at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock and pull it back and forth. It may be flopping around as bad as our Maxima was. You know where it is. But if that's not the case, swerve to the right or to the left. You're telling me it changes. That's pretty much taking the weight on it and the load off. That's a lot of weight. So when you get it off the ground, it may not be as loud, so a stethoscope is a good choice.
Beautiful thing. Let's put it right here.
Yep.
Anywhere you get good surface area, good. Spin it, John. I hear a slight rumbling, grumbling in there. You can imagine with 1,000 pounds over the wheel and articulation, that would really grind.
Yep, and I got an electronic stethoscope right here. Now this is pretty high tech. This is cool.
Oh, yeah.
If that doesn't pick it up, now this will pick up anything.
Don't you yell into that.
Put that in there. Well, here's something you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
I would like a number 6 with fries.
Oh, boy.
Here you go. All right, you ready? Go ahead, spin that.
All right. Oh, yeah. Amplified growling. You can definitely hear damage in there.
Big time.
Yeah, big time.
All right.
And my fries are ready.
Okay, great. So here's the deal. Go ahead and do that. Now, one other one, dial indicator, man. This is absolutely precise. You go on there, you go to your hub, you eliminate the rotor, you eliminate any other run out, and then you spin it. You zero your dial indicator here, and when you zero it, and we got a little play here on the table, but we still have some run out.
There it is right there. That's the worn spot in that bearing that's allowing that to move.
And that's not a good thing.
Nope.
Nope.
Got to replace that.
Yep, especially anything over 3,000s, man, that's going to be a problem. Well, what about our Maxima, though? I mean, that was a tough bearing.
That was substantial. Remember the clunking on the 12 and 6 o'clock check? I mean, you could feel it and hear it. That was bad.
That was rough.
Yeah.
But using that press made easy work of that job. Yep. Put it back on, took it for a test drive, rumbling was gone, went ahead and did both sides. If that side's that bad, Dustin, you probably want to do the same thing, address both sides of the car. These are, especially on that truck, it's probably just going to be a bolt-on detachable hub because he said it was a four-wheel drive.
Yeah, and if you're off-road a lot, keep everything greased up in that front end. Get Moog tie rod ends, keep it all greased up. You won't have any problems.
And Dustin, you want to do that because if it ends up like this one right here, your wheel's going to fly off. Not a good thing.
Hey, come see us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every week. We love hearing from you guys. Keep the questions coming.
Absolutely. And we're out of time for today. So join us next week right here at Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chipola College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chipola was recently ranked as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.